Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Cloud 12 Coffee Chat for District Leadership. Today's topic is establishing a positive and collaborative culture. All right, if you'll take a moment to just tell me a little bit about yourself. You can write in the chat space your first and last name, your role in the district, district and school name, city name and location. And optionally, you can type, what do you hope to gain from today's session? You should have permissions now to send it directly to the host and panelists. And as I continue with the presentation, I will, announce some of those people that are in the room as well. All right, let's keep moving. A little bit about myself. My name is Emmanuel Radish. I currently serve as the Customer Engagement Manager here at Cloud 12. I have 16 years in education. Before I officially joined Cloud 12, I've had the privilege of serving as a teacher, department chair, loved ELA, shout out to English teachers. Served as a building administrator, having the privilege of overseeing curriculum instruction, federal programs and things of that nature, and then also working on a larger scale for the district as a district administrator, overseeing literacy practices, curriculum instruction, improvement, SST, RTI, things like that, as well as serving on numerous state Department of Education committees. I also have 3 years as a Cloud 12 customer. We initially started as an initial deployment, and then we expanded to a district-wide implementation. So starting off with 5 cameras, went to 12, and then the entire school, and then the entire district. So I was very excited about that. And now I'm officially here at Cloud 12 as that customer engagement manager. Also on this call, I have my wonderful Director of Customer Success and the rest of the team, Kelly Martinez. I have Caitlin Day, Customer Success Manager. Also, Jamie Ulmer, Customer Success Operations Specialist, and then, of course, myself. So true change requires a focus on creating school culture that supports academic, social, emotional, and character development of children. And this was a quote that was said or presented by Dr. Maurice Elias. He's a world-renowned educator, and he really just, we have to put that focus on creating that culture that not only supports academics, but also supports the social, emotional, and that character, because we're constantly developing that in our children because, to put it plainly, they are our future, so we have to prepare for that. All right, our objectives for today's session, we're going to first talk about defining school culture, then assessing school culture. We'll then move into transforming the culture, and then end with reflections and action steps, and then also talk about maximizing Cloud 12, and then we'll end with questions and brief discussion that some may have. All right, defining school culture. School culture is the set of norms, values, beliefs, rituals, ceremonies, symbols, and stories that make up the persona of the school. It's everything that is around us. It's like I said, it's everything from posters to the dynamic, how we feel about our environment is, how we feel about each other. It's our stories, and everyone has a story, and we have to listen to those stories and really present them in the reality that they are. And so that reality really shows us the persona of the school. And again, that incorporates all of those different components. And students are highly aware when they attend a school that ranks as low or underperforming. They often come to school with a why try attitude, attitude of defeat. Why am I here? There's no point. I'm going to fail anyway. I'm not going to be promoted. Just all of those different elements of defeat because they've tried before. And based off of a variety of reasons, it may be the teacher let them down, the parents, maybe circumstances in life, it may be whatever, but they know when they have that culture. And a lot of times, or most of the time, that culture that you're in is going to feed upon that. So when you have that attitude of feed, you're basically enwrapping yourself in that. And so no amount of structural or technical change is going to overcome that feeling that the failure defines us. Only a shift in culture can defeat this feeling. So you have to have a shift in everything. And if you were attending the 2 earlier sessions in January about improving professional learning communities, we talked about the different shifts that have to happen in a PLC, from doing everything isolated to doing it collaboratively. We all depend on each other. We're interconnected. All of those things go hand in hand. So only a shift in that culture can defeat this feeling. And we're going to talk about those different types of shifts today in today's session. So a negative culture for teaching and learning creates an almost impossible learning environment. We have 6 familiar stories that illustrate the most common characteristics of these toxic cultures. The first one being, our students and parents have changed. How many times have we heard as educators, teachers will say, you know what? These kids are just different nowadays. The parents are different nowadays. I remember when I was in school, parents had respect and students had respect, and the parents were always, willing to help the kid, and they would get onto their kid if they weren't doing their work and all that. We always talk about students and parents have changed. That is a characteristic that leads us to a negative culture because it's always presenting that defeatist attitude or that defeatist demeanor. The second story being, teachers are independent contractors who share a common hallway. So a lot of times we look at teachers as, oh, I'm the one person that's here. I'm in the hallway. There's no one else that's outside of us. No one else is working outside of us. Those type of things. We have to make sure that we know that we are together. We are working. We're not independent of each other. We're working collaboratively. We don't come in, shut the door, and go about our own ways. The third story being students rule. We hear a lot of times, oh, these students run this school. There's nothing we can do. Administrators aren't doing anything. Teachers aren't doing much. These students just run this school. I'm just coming here. I'm just collecting my check because there's nothing that I can do. So that is also that story that sometimes is there. Cliques and subcultures are the norm. How many times do we see cliques and people, being those people that, sorry, I'm trying to adjust so y'all can actually see my face as I'm talking. I just realized the header was kind of cutting off part of that. But cliques and subcultures are the norm. So again, we think certain select groups and people run the culture that we have. There is no camaraderie or collective nature that is here. Everyone is, the cliques and subcultures are running everything, right? We also see the power seekers control everything. We'll hear that, that teacher over there, she always says what she wants and she gets what she wants and she controls everything because it's always she's seeking power. She wants to be in charge. There's nothing we can do. Why should I try? Because she runs everything. She's over everything. That's an important feature as well that can begin to create that negative, toxic environment. And then also negative stories become reality. Right. So we look at our negativity and we think of the negative things that are going on, and sometimes that becomes the reality. We look, and it's unfortunate when it becomes the reality because we hear these negative things. We begin to say, well, this isn't working. This has never worked. Why should we try that? It's always going to be my way. It's always going to be this way. There's no flexibility in that, no change, no real collaboration, like true collaboration that is happening. Not the fake collaboration that happens a lot of times, but really that real collaboration. And sometimes that negativity, because it's being so prevalent in the school building and so prevalent in the schools, among teachers and teams, that negative situations or those negative stories can become the reality, and then everything is just negative. And each of these scenarios, especially that last one, shows a toxic culture. And toxic cultures are very, very difficult to change. It can happen. Toxic cultures can change, but it does take some work. All right. On the other hand, A healthy culture is a school in which educators have an unwavering belief in the ability of all students, right, to achieve success. And they pass that belief on to others in overt and covert ways. Their actions support the belief that all students can learn at high levels, and they can. The entire school staff takes collective ownership of the ability of all students to successfully learn at high levels as well. And educators create policies and procedures and adopt practices that support this belief in their abilities. So that is super important when we're defining our healthy culture. And a fixed mindset says that, because there's a difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says that no matter how much effort and preparation a student puts forth, the outcome will not change. And we unfortunately have teachers and educators that are passing it on to students that, no matter what I do, no matter how much time and effort I put into it, it's never going to be enough. They're never going to accept it. There's never going to be any change. And because of that, the outcome's not going to change because you have that fixed mindset. But on the other hand, you have to have that growth mindset. And that growth mindset is the belief that, hey, with focused effort and focused preparation, anyone can have high levels of academic achievement. You just have to put those scaffolds in place as a teacher, and you also have to put forth those extra efforts and extra strategies in place as a student in order to be able to get those high levels of academic success. And I remember as a teacher, it was difficult sometimes. My principal would say, Mr. Reddish, I really can't tell the difference in your advanced class and your regular class because you're just giving so much high level work and the students are, talking about their writing so hard. I had to find strategies, and I actually trained my kids to be quote unquote mean when we were grading essays because I would take off all the names and scan them in the computer or, scan them in the copier, and I would give them a packet of everyone's essay that we had written for an assignment. And I would give them the rating scales and everything by the Georgia Milestones Assessment System. And I would tell the kids, hey, we're going to be mean today. And this is how we're going to be mean. Like, we're going to rate it this way. But the only way you can be mean and say, this is a 2 or this is a 1 is you have to have evidence based off of the actual essay. And here's these criteria and these sheets. And so it was really funny because I remember the principal coming in and my kids would be like, I believe that this paper right here is a 2 because it lacks textual evidence and it lacks this critique and blah, 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 blah. And they just name all these terms and explanations. I had to find that strategy because unfortunately they were, at times, cruel kids in that class. So I had to use that strategy to make it a positive environment. And guess what? That created that positive environment where everyone was focused and everyone was aiming for those high levels of academic achievement. It's all about the mindset. And in a healthy culture, educators understand that teaching is much more than a job. It's not just a job, it's not just a profession or even a noble calling. It is the moral imperative, that moral command to prepare future generations. And educators believe that the same expectations and desires that they hold for the future of their own children, grandchildren, and other relatives or close connections are the norm for the students whom they serve. So myself, for example, I personally do not have any children, but I have a nephew that's very, very close to me. He just turned 7, actually. And actually, I got to go to dinner with him last night, and I was kind of, hurt as a teacher in a sense because I asked him, what did you learn? And he was like, I don't know. And, I'm like, that's not going to work for me, and I'm speaking, from a young African American male, like in teaching them, I know there becomes levels of defeat at a certain age and they lose literacy rates and levels and things of that nature. So it bothered me as an educator and also as an uncle. And I said, no, Ashton, I want to know more. What did you learn? And what did she go over? What did the teacher talk about? And so I had to pull it out of him. And so finally, after he talked and everything, I was able to kind of reward him in a sense, like, okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. Here's $5 because I want you to keep going in school, and I want you to see some motivation. I don't want to always give extrinsic rewards, but I like as a, money or whatever, but I want you to know the value that I place on education. I personally place value on education just as much as you're doing with your soccer and football, and he's so dramatic and all those different things. He needs to be in a drama class, seriously. But in all of those aspects or whatever, that's my nephew, and he's close to my heart. He's the child that's in my heart. And I have another little cousin that just turned 1, and I think about these things in the future, how he's going to be in education. So because my heart is so deep for Ashton and my nephew, I have to take that into the classroom, that I'm looking at these children that are in front of me as my own. And when you look at them as your own, then you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that they have success, that ultimate success, and that they are learning at high levels of academic achievement. And this moral imperative or command underpins their efforts and drives each instructional decision. So when you have that in your mindset, then you know that everything you do is going to drive those certain instructional decisions that you have. Okay, I need to get some water really quick, sorry. Thank you. Or thank you for bearing with me. So now let's move into assessing school culture. According to Muhammad and Peterson in 2012, there are 7 indicators of a healthy culture, and we're going to talk about those. So number 1, the school culture supports a safe, orderly, and equitable learning environment. So it has to have safety, it has to be orderly, and it has to be equitable for every single student, no matter race, culture, age, anything. Everyone, it has to be an equitable learning environment. And the school creates experiences that foster the belief that all students can learn at high levels. And teachers hold high expectations for all students academically and behaviorally. And this is evidenced in their practice, okay? The school has established traditions and experiences that reinforce high academic and behavioral expectations. Teachers communicate regularly with families about individual student progress. There is evidence that student achievement is publicly celebrated, such as displays of student work, assemblies, and so on. And I will tell you, I worked at a school at one time that was very strong in curriculum and instruction, but the school culture was struggling. It wasn't toxic, but it was just it was just boring. It was a boring culture. There wasn't a lot of pride because we had no assemblies, no talent shows, nothing. The only thing we had was, I think, the Veterans Day Assembly, and that was it. And we looked forward to it because it was the only thing that we had. And later on, we began to build a culture that had more things in it, and that was awesome. The school also provides support for the physical, cultural, social, economic, and intellectual needs of all students, which are reflected in a commitment to equity and appreciation of diversity. And that is so important. And as we move forward, we also have to understand that the leadership team in the school and the teachers in the building need to come together and discuss and analyze 9 questions to assess culture. So when you begin to really sit down and think about how do we establish a positive and collaborative culture, we have to first analyze that, and we have to analyze it well. And so when we look at that, the leadership team and teachers need to come together and analyze this. So the first question we look at is, at this school, how do teachers support one another? That's the first question we need to think about. Given the academic diversity in our school, is it really possible to work effectively and efficiently independent of your team? How can we collaborate to make a real difference for our students? Okay, that's the first question. And this is so important too, because you have to have a team that is collaborative and willing to work and willing to listen to the ideas of others. You can't do everything based off of what is your known knowledge or your mindset. Like there has to be reasonings and backing and support and kind of a give and take. There's a compromise there, but at the end of the day, it's all for that positive culture. What rituals and routines do you employ in your classroom and hallways to make sure that the school has a safe and orderly environment? That's important. Are you letting kids and everybody go a ruck? Is everyone just kind of, teachers not standing at the door, teachers just, come to class late with their cup of coffee in their hand, like, sorry guys, I'm late. I've seen that happen actually, and that culture was destroyed in a sense until it was some structures and order put back in place, kind of a reset that happened there. And the second part of that is, are these your own strategies or an agreed upon collective effort of the team and the school? How and when do you celebrate student successes or progress towards proficiency on the priority outcomes? Is there a need for more celebration and recognition on a school-wide basis? Because you have to celebrate, you have to push forth that effort on everything. Do you feel appreciated? If so, by whom? The parents, the students, the administration, the colleagues, the district. Because in order to have a positive culture, you have to feel appreciated. You have to feel that what you're offering, what you're presenting, what you're working on, what you're contributing, that is actually appreciated. Because if we don't feel appreciated, then we begin to have those attitudes and feelings of defeat, as we talked about earlier, and that is the beginning of that. And we do not want that to happen. We want to make sure that we are also feeling appreciated. Also, what do people say and think about the school? What are the stories people tell about the school? Is this an accurate perception? Why or why not? How are new teachers welcomed into the school? How are they supported and mentored, and by whom? Right? When you're building new teachers in school, and I've seen it happen too many times too, where new teachers will be hired in the school and people will give them their job responsibility and give them their title and things to do. And they're like, all right, go, good job, go about everything. And then, a month later or so, the job is trying to get rid of them because they see so many different issues that are happening, or things are not progressing as they wanted to progress at that particular time. But the question that you have to ask yourself in leadership, and also as the school leader, the teacher leaders, is, have I offered the right resources, right? I can't just keep hiring and letting people go because they hit a point where is deemed of no value, or they hit a point where it's like, oh, you have a lot of issues in your classroom or problems, we're going to have to let you go, right? Or we can't work with you any longer. There is not any mentoring going on. There has to be collaboration, and talk to the new teachers, see what they're experiencing, because there are different times, right? We need to know and work together and then mentor. That's part of that instructional coaching model that we talked about with Jim Knight. It is that working together. We have to support and mentor and provide resources and things of that nature so that we can be strong, so that we can have a strong culture and strong teachers. Are there cliques and subgroups in the school? Is this helpful or hurtful to our efforts to improve? And this is so important as well. There are a lot of times cliques and subgroups, as we talked about a little bit earlier in this presentation. But you have to realize, is that helpful for you? Probably not. But I will tell you, there are certain subgroups or cliques in a school that are helpful. And the types of subgroups that are helpful are those where you have that group of teachers that are positive, they are strong-minded, willing to work. They have a passion for education. They have a passion for teaching kids. They have a passion for learning. And when you have that core group of people, then you can take them and hopefully have a ripple effect where that spreads out into the entire school and kind of pushes that negativity out the way. And it does. It's a process, and it takes a lot of reflection and evaluation, but it can happen. I've seen it happen. So I know that can happen as long as you're working together collaboratively. What aspirations do you have for our students, right? We got to think about that. What do others wish for in service to students? You know, what hopes do we have? And how can we improve student achievement? That's so important. What indicators are most important to monitor, right? How can we improve that student achievement, and what indicators are most important in our monitoring of that? A healthy culture depends on intentional and purposeful actions by staff members school-wide. It has to be a school-wide effort that is participated and done by everyone, okay? One might compare it to maintaining a healthy relationship or marriage. And that's, that's another topic for a different day there. But, in a marriage or a relationship, both must be cultivated and promoted and respected on a continual basis. I was in a relationship once with this lady, and this was years ago, but I remember our relationship didn't work, and it was mainly on me because I was so focused with my work. Things were going well in my professional life, I negated, the time that I should have been spending with her. I would go sometimes a couple of weeks without calling, right? That is not a good relationship, right? It is a lack. It's a lack of respect. It's a lack of cultivating that is happening there. So we have to know that in a marriage or a relationship, in order for it to work, both people have to be in one accord. Both have to be cultivated, promoting of each other and respected. And it's the same thing in this culture. We have to all be cultivating, all be in the same mindset, the same on one accord, one agreement. And a healthy school culture is not a destination. It's not something that you get to and say, "Hey, we're healthy now," right? And I mean, think about this. And I don't know really good example, but let's say, oh, I got a decent example. Let's say if I were baking a cake, right? And I'm like, I've got my sugar, my eggs, my milk. I have everything ready to bake this wonderful red velvet cake. Everything is together. Everything is absolutely perfect. hmm But then I accidentally tip over, you know, um, let's say I baked the cake, everything's perfect, but then as I'm like trying to, sanitize my hands to cut a piece of cake, I spill the bottle of hand sanitizer on the cake. Oops, it's ruined everything, right? Now we can no longer eat this cake. I would hope you wouldn't eat the cake. But we would no longer eat this piece of cake. So again, a healthy culture is not somewhere you're just getting to. It's not a destination where you can say, we've arrived, we finished. It is an ongoing process of developing and sustaining. So you have to develop and establish and maintain or sustain mindsets that support and enhance student learning. And it requires a firm belief that all students can learn and that all really means all. That is so, so super important. Transforming school culture. The first step in transforming the culture and mindset of a school is to adopt three core principles that guide the work and set the tone for school improvement. You cannot blame the students. All the time, or a lot of times, we blame students. We say, it's these kids, I've taught them, I've done everything I could possibly do. There's just no progress that is happening. It is 100% on the kids. You cannot do that. You cannot blame the students. You want them working, and they should be working more than you in a classroom that you set up effectively and facilitated it. But we cannot blame the students. We have to look at every action instructionally. Have we set up a model for kids? If kids are sleeping in our class, or their heads are down, or they're misbehaving, we have to go back and analyze, have I set up a right positive culture for this to not happen? Have I set norms? Have I practiced those procedures and policies and just everything? Have I done that? And if that has not taken place, then you have to go back and reanalyze. It's a continuous cycle. It's always spinning. It's like you're on a hamster on a spinning wheel, but you're spinning with a positive goal. You're not just spinning for the sake of spinning. You're constantly reflecting. Also, we have to realize that learning is required. It is not optional. I'm gonna say it again. Learning is required. It is not optional. And what that means here is that you can't just have students come every day and one day they want to work and the next day they don't. Or, I'm going to do this particular assignment, but I'm not going to do the next one. Learning has to be required. And that does not mean me forcing everything to you. It means that, and this is going to change your mindset. And teachers, don't come for me. And I know some on this call, don't come for me when I say this, okay? Don't come for me when I say this, but we have to have a mindset that, we can't, I'm sorry, let me back up. We can't have a mindset where when they turn in their work, that's it. And if you didn't turn in, it's a zero. No, you got to get yourself to a mindset that, hey, it's not just about this grade. That's going to be a portion, but it's about you learning the skill, learning the standard. So you don't have your homework today. That's okay. You can sit with me during your lunch. You can sit with me after school. We can sit during your connection time. I can meet you before school. We can meet after school, but you're going to get this done. And it's not even just about completion of it. It's about you're going to master this standard because, baby, this is not optional for you to do. It's required. It is required. We are going to learn. We're going to work together. And that takes a lot of effort as well on the educator's part, but the rewards of it are so worth it. And I'm getting so excited in my teacher moment, but it's so worth it. And you'll see the glow of that, okay? Hope is not a strategy for success. A lot of times we say, I hope these kids do well, but it is what it is. Or I hope we all end up getting proficiency on the exam at the end of the year. I hope we have distinguished students, and I hope we do well. Hope is good to have. It's great to have, actually, but it's not a strategy for success. We have to look at things. We have to analyze our data. We have to constantly say, okay, this particular method didn't work. Let's try this one. This particular thing didn't work too well. Let's try this one. Or this one worked just a little bit. Let me put forth a little bit more effort in that. Let me send it on a different day or work this on a different day or ask questions and do these different things. Like that's how we have to work because that's how our data is. That's how our success is. We're constantly coming up with ideas. We're looking at the big picture. How can we grow? How can we make it better? Okay, we have to do well. And so that's what you have to concentrate on. And so internalizing these 3 simple practices. Not blaming kids. Learning is required for all. And hope is not a strategy. You have to keep working and have, plan for success, right? Create a plan for success and action steps for that. These are going to begin to shift your school from a toxic culture to a healthy one, right? And that is what we're looking for. All right, so I want to actually put some things in application a little bit here. And, if you want to come off mic, you can at any point in time, but you don't have to. But I want to talk about some application of this, right? So how do we begin to transform school culture? And I'm going to tell you, these are papers that I've scanned in from different workshops I've attended, books and things like that, from the Solution Tree. So I did paste this here. Some may be blurry, hopefully not. But this is scanned in, just so you know. And I don't know why the scanner was sideways, but it's here, and hopefully we'll follow along. But transforming school culture. An issue to address, it may be, and I want you to think about this in your own curriculum or think about this in your own school. This is the process that you go through as your team with your peers. So if this is a math example that I'm going to go through. So this would be with who? The math teachers, maybe the math administrator, maybe your principal as well. It may even involve some district leaders later on. But this is to talk about the problem of math. So the first thing you need to do is talk about what is the issue that you're having. And for this example, I'm going to use the issue that too many students are failing Algebra 1. How do we know this, right? We got to have the data or the data to support this claim. So for second semester, we can say, 44% failed in 2015 through 2016. 46% failed the year before that. 48% failed the year before that. So we're making some progress, But do you see how it's dropping? But it's still an issue. 44% are failing our class, and about 450 students are in the class each year, which means that you're looking at almost 200 students every year are failing. That is not acceptable, right? At all. No educator would look at that and say that's acceptable. So you have to first come up with what is your issue. And this is the issue that we're using. So after we have the issue and we have the data now to support it, though this is what's happening, it's a trend that we're failing. Now we need to talk about as a team, why is this happening? What are the reasons that this is happening? And so when we brainstorm as a team, we may come up with 5 reasons together that we collectively agree on. Okay, students aren't doing homework. That's one reason that they're failing. Students are not retaking exams. We're offering it, but they're not retaking it. Students are not trying in class or coming in for help. Students are not ready for this class in the first place, which means they haven't got all the prerequisites that they need before they even join this class, right? And students are just not coming to class. So these are 5 reasons that, and there could be more reasons, but we're looking at the top 5 reasons of the team, that this is not happening. So this is important. And this is what you do in collective PR, collective school work. So now what you do is you break these down by reason and analyze it a little bit more, right? So when we say students are doing their homework, we need to identify questions to address to find a solution, right? So we need to talk as a team, okay, how many students failed due to their homework from this number? Why are students not doing their homework? That's the question we need to ask. How many students failed homework but passed the test? And that's happening, right? We need to look at that. How do teachers assign homework? Are you assigning it every night? Are you doing it differently? Are you assigning it all at one time? Are you not assigning homework? What's going on? How do teachers, because remember, this is a conversation amongst the team of math teachers, right? How do teachers use homework in class for learning? Because this is an important discussion here that I'm not going to expand on really, but what is the purpose of homework? If you're just giving homework for practice and you never come back to school to talk about it, analyze it, or apply it, then there's no purpose in the homework assignment. So people are probably not doing it because they realize I'm doing all this work. When we come back, Mr. Reddish isn't even talking about it, right? That's an issue. What portion of a student's grade depends on homework? So that's important as well. The next reason that we want to break down, I'm just going to go through these. If they're not taking retakes, when are retake opportunities available? If I have a lot of students that are, in football and cheerleading and all of that, after school retakes may not be feasible, but a morning retake may be feasible, right? Or I may need to, I hate to pull kids out of classes, but if I pull them out of PE or I pull them out of keyboarding or something like that, or, art, which we love art, but if we pull them out of those classes, maybe that's the best time in a content class to get that retake. Why are students not retaking exams? Why are they not retaking it? There may be that defeatist attitude of, I failed the first time, why should I retake it, right? What must students do prior to retaking an exam? What are those action steps they had to do before they retake it? You may be given too much of a prerequisite to retake it. I remember one teacher years ago, and I so disagreed with this, a teacher I knew would have students write a paragraph for every single question that they missed before they could even take the retake. And I'm like, I get the purpose behind it, but that is a waste of time to sit here and write all these paragraphs. Nobody wants to do the paragraph, so then no one retakes it, no one grows, no one masters the standard. Okay, it's not about busy work, it's about mastering the standard. So you have to question your practices and your strategies with that. How do teachers tell students when and how to retake an exam? That's important as well. How are teachers telling our students when and how to retake these, right? On that next reason, we said not trying or getting help. So we got a question. How many students are not trying and why? We need to examine trends, right? In students' behavior, instructional practices, and classroom expectations. When can students get additional help? Is it optional or mandatory? Can they get help during the school day? This is important to analyze, right? We say some of our students are not ready for for Algebra 1. They don't have the right prerequisites. So we got a question, how many students would benefit from intervention or remediation, right, before they do the class? How can students get the intervention or remediation they need during the school day? Is that possible? And that's the best method, honestly. And what skills do students need to be successful? Because as teachers, we also have to be talking and having those vertical alignment meetings, not just horizontal as we're doing now, but vertical alignment meetings as well, to see what skills do our students need to move to the next level? And then we get to do that again. What do they need to move to the next level? And attendance. We got a question. Why are students late or not coming to class? And how many students failed due to the attendance? And for each of these in that far right column, we're going to write down the answers to these questions that we've come up with. Because you can't just ask the question and present the question to the team. You got to also answer it. This is why we really did. And this work. This is hard work. It's real work, and you have to have real conversations. But this is how you begin to transform, having these honest conversations that are ongoing. And the next step we're going to do is then create some action steps toward a solution. So after you've come up with the reasons, you've come up with the questions to dive into these reasons, and you've answered them, then you want to create some action steps. So our action steps from this meeting may be, we're going to assign meaningful and focused homework, about 20 minutes of work. It may be one word problem or 8 to 10 questions. That's reasonable, right? We're going to align homework to the lesson and assessment learning target. So after you've talked about it, one teacher may be doing this work and just practicing, this one is doing that. You got to have it aligned to the standard, right? And that's something we had to do. I'm not going to read all this, but provide answers to the homework so students can use them as formative feedback. We may determine school-wide intervention and remediation time in addition to core instruction to use flexibility with students as needed. And we may examine instructional practices during lessons with the goal of having students try and work with one another to learn as classroom community members. Okay, so important. All right. Also with that, when we transform school culture, we need to do a symbol and artifact walk. You need to walk around your school, get up from that desk, get up from behind their teaching, get up as a principal teacher and walk the school. Walk around, you need to observe everything on your walls, everything's hanging, every picture, every prize, every trophy, every outside of the building. It's a lot of work too, but you need to document your findings. What do we see? And what do we hear? And this is in every area. What do we see in the school entranceway when we walk in? What do we see in the main office? What do we see in the library? I hope when you walk in the library, you should see books, right? But should we just see books on shelves? No, they should be displayed. We should see posters. We should see designs. We should see collaborative reading areas. We should see people working together. We should see computer sections, new books, pop-in books. We want to have older books so that we have the classics, but we also want to have new books that appeal. And we got to move out of just that Dewey Decimal System, right? We got to do like a bookstore in a sense, or a bookshop, and say, coming this week, or in theaters, or modern fiction, different things that intrigue us, right? Get a little coffee shop. And I mean, any librarian that may be listening here, or school principal may be like, I don't want coffee on the floor. Be mindful in how you do that. Let it be a token or reward, or sell it, however you want to do, however your school policies are. But consider that, because it changes the environment, right? You want to change the way you do, and do the same as a teacher. Classrooms everywhere. Once you do this, what percentage of your visual images supports or reflects academic learning? What percentage reflects arts, sports and activities, and behavior? I've been in a lot of schools where 100% of everything was about the football team and basketball. And while that's positive, what does that tell me as someone walking in and observing? It tells me that your only sole purpose in this school is about athletics. All you care about is your games and filling those stands and getting that money for that. Academics is not a factor here, right? Or if I come in and all I see are rules on the, do not run in the hallway, do not do this, do not do this, don't do that. I'm like, this is a stifling school, right? A stifling school. This is a school that I cannot grow in academically or in sports or in arts because it's all about the behavior. You want to have a well balance, right? A good balance. But you know what should be the top priority for your school? It should be the academic learning. That is the first primary thing. Everything else comes second to that, and you show that by what you show in your school. It's just like a workplace. If I walk in and there's everything's bland, there's nothing on the walls, that's boring, right? It gives me just a private, what's the claustrophobic workspace? Like I want to see art, I want to see design, I want to see smiling face, I want to see happiness, right? That's what transforms that culture in your building and in your schools. What contributes to your vision of culture and what needs to be changed? You got to look at what positive symbols and artifacts should remain, because it doesn't mean you're going to rip down everything from the walls. Some people might have to. But then you also want to look at what symbol or artifact modifications do you suggest? What needs to be added? What needs to be taken away? You want to also list your current traditions. Circle those that promote a healthy culture, and then you want to list any rituals that you would like to start or begin to further that healthy culture, right? You want to get away all negative and all toxicity and just get the positive, healthy culture. All right, and then finally, we want to reflect and take action, right? We have to reflect and take action. So you want to move from that left-hand corner or column to that far right-hand column. So when you have awareness and belief, staff members understand that the school's current culture and are successfully making the necessary changes to create a healthy culture, right? And sustain it. Staff members believe in and practice the 3 school improvement principles and hold each other accountable every day. Accountability is so important. And also in reflecting on that, teachers and leaders need to continually update the symbols and artifacts. You can't just do it one time. It has to be a continuous process. And adults and students work to have conversations and learning experiences all day in every school space that contribute to a healthy culture. You also want to have a school that celebrates teacher and student successes and focus work in a meaningful and authentic way. And then you want to also have established traditions and newly created rituals to further promote a culture that is what? Focused on learning. Also, to maximize Cloud 12 in all of this, because I mean, Cloud 12 hasn't gone away with the positivity and that culture, you had to push this in, right? How does Cloud 12 work within your school and your culture? This is a real question. You have to think about this. How is Cloud 12 working in our school and in our culture? And I know of a school now that it did not work well, in the first implementation. The principal came in and said, hey, these cameras were installed. They've been, in your classrooms for the last 3 or 4 months. Teachers revolted, were upset because it's like, you didn't even tell me what those were. I didn't know what that was in my classroom, blah, 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 blah. And there's been a lot of work to have to transform that culture, right? Because it was not established well. It wasn't presented well. You have to do the foundation, and that comes with thinking, brainstorming, and really laying it out and being transparent as well. Be honest. So really think about how is it working within your school and in your culture. And also think about what can we do to maximize Cloud 12 within our buildings that helps establish and maintain a positive and collaborative school culture, right? What are we going to do to establish and maintain this positive culture that is utilizing Cloud 12, right? Let's do peer observations. Let's have conversations. Let's use the camera to help our own practices, right? I've even used it sometimes, if you have a behavior issue, to show the student, hey, this is the behavior that I saw. I want you to see this behavior. Don't have other students in that for FERPA, but this is the behavior I saw. Is that really reflective of what our positive culture should be? Right? These are conversations that we have to have. And you have to think about these things when you're doing and establishing your positive culture, right? We have to think about How are we utilizing Cloud 12? Are we utilizing it to the max for our instruction? And safety is important. Don't get me wrong, for those of you that are using it for safety, are using it for behavior, those are important, they're great, and Cloud 12 is awesome in that. But we need to take it a step further. What are we doing to transform our school instructionally? How are we using Cloud 12 to transform our school instructionally? How are we using to transform our processes, our practices when it comes to RTI, response to intervention, or multi-tier tiered levels of student support? What are we doing for that in MTSS? We need to expand. What are we doing in PBIS, right? How are we utilizing Cloud 12 for that? And it can be done, and it can be so transforming, but we have to put forth that effort and work. And last slide here, I believe, is you have to just keep a mindset that is on continuous reflection, continuous improvement, and always having those next action steps when establishing and maintaining a positive and collaborative culture. Do we have any questions? Any questions? Dr. Ellis, I think that, I'm sorry, the question was just posed, how do we work to move that toxic culture to a positive culture effectively? Honestly, you have to really work and put forth the effort. You have to really put in that energy and not do it individually. It's a collaborative effort, right? It's a collaborative effort in that it's something that is constantly ongoing, constantly maneuvering, constantly massaging and working. And I know you all are doing a wonderful job at your school in doing that. You are, like, y'all, I mean, you don't have a toxic culture, but you're working toward a really strong, healthy culture. And I love that. I love how, the energy that you have is working, and it's already succeeding. Like, I'm already seeing great things happen. So those are those type of things. You just got to keep practicing and working in every single thing. Also, yes, just making sure that we have everything together, and thank you as well, and just having that culture there. So that's something that we really want to work to and just have wonderful. Okay. All right, and I thank you for attending. For any follow-up questions or to set up a meeting with your district and school leadership team, or to have PD sessions, virtual or on site, we'll be glad to come there. Or if you have any additional interest in Cloud